Oh, thank you so much, Bobby. We love you too. And thank you so much for asking Chris, Kayla, and I to join this morning's session. We're delighted to be bringing you some of the latest and greatest updates from the Wave 2 release. But with that, I'm going to head over onto who we are a little bit more for those of you that don't know us. So I'll start with myself. My name's Lucy. As you know, feel free to hit me up on Twitter with @LucyBourne. I'm quite loud, as are most of the rest of us on there. So if you've got any questions, feel free to go there because it's probably the quickest place to get me. I'm fairly new to Microsoft. I'm in the start of my 7th or 8th month. And prior to that, I worked like his very loud, very annoying shadow, also with Chris, at Hitachi, where we where we managed a bunch of kind of enterprise pre-sale stuff, and then prior to that, at Cloud 2020, where we did lots of nice SMB CRM products. And I've worked with CRM since CRM 4, a little bit of 3 before that, but ultimately, I'm a massive geek about Dynamics 365 and the Power Platform. My role at Microsoft is to work with our fantastic BizApps ISV community to really help them establish their products and their solutions and help them with building their success going forward. So I'll hand over to Kayla to introduce herself, and then Chris.
Hi guys, so my name's Kaila Bloomfield, for anyone who doesn't already know me. I joined Microsoft in November, and since then it's been a whirlwind of community, thanks to Lucy and Chris, to be honest. I'm from the dirty side of the stack, as everyone likes to call it, which is finance and operations. And yeah, I'll just be joining you today to add a little bit of fun and let you know what's going on. So I'll hand you over to Chris, who everyone must know.
Hey everyone, hope you can hear me okay. So I'm Chris Huntingford. I'm a partner tech architect at Microsoft. So I'm basically the less good looking version and the less intelligent version of Kayla and Lucy. And basically what I get to do is work with our BizApps partners, Azure partners, and Modern Workplace partners on building out Power Platform capabilities and learning about the awesomeness of the stack. So that's me.
Thank you, Chris. So with that, the plan for today is, well, first off, you've had a welcome from us, but next we're going to hand over to Chris for the contentious message of the day, which was the biggest announcement from Microsoft Inspire. For those of you that don't know, if you are a Microsoft partner, our annual showcase event is normally in the glamorous Vegas, where much consumption of booze happens and a huge amount of inappropriate tattoos occur. Chris can attest to that. That happens every July at the start of our financial year here at Microsoft, and we always announce big announcements, and this year really impacts business applications. So Chris is going to tell us all about that. Then he's going to hand over to me to give a bit of an update on sales and marketing and the developments there. And then he'll take over again and talk about customer service and field service. Before we hand over to the fabulous Kayla, who's going to take us through everything Wave 2 release related around ERP, including some really cool stuff on commerce and project ops. And then we have got a little bit of a secret squirrel slide on Power Platform, because there's been a huge amount of stuff on Power Platform as well, aside from the big announcements. And then finally, we're going to wrap up with some summary and questions. Just as a reminder though, do feel free to pop any questions you've got in the chat. The reason there's 3 of us today is because there's so much to cover. We all need to take a breath, and then the rest of us can also help answer questions. So pop them all in. If we can't answer them, you know what we're like, we will get back to you, and we will answer them as much as we can as soon as we've got that answer. Don't ask any licensing questions, because be friendly, or if you do, at Chris in them. Cool. So with that, I shall hand over to the fabulous Chris Nacorn for the Inspire update.
All right. So the slide, you have to say like a rock star. You have to go the Inspire update. So Lucy, do you want to just pop onto the next one?
Sure.
Cool. All right. So I'm pretty sure some of you went to Inspire. Some of you might not have been at Inspire, but at Inspire every year we release some pretty awesome information. Yeah, so when we got asked to do this session, and obviously we're really keen on it, I was like, wow, how on earth do we bring in all of the Inspire announcements? So I thought, you know what, stuff it, we're going to pick one, right? And there's one that really kind of knocked the socks off half the world. So let's just take a look back real quick at what we're trying to focus on from a roadmap perspective with both the Power Platform and Dynamics 365. So the first one is around bridging the digital world, the digital and physical world. So we've had quite a big focus on sort of bringing in these amazing sort of augmented reality tools and allowing people to do 3D modeling and et cetera, and really working with tools like Power BI and I'm embedding these amazing tools within Canvas apps and both model-driven apps, and then outside of that into the wider stack, including finance and operations. So from that perspective, we are putting a lot of emphasis on that bridging the digital and physical world. The second piece is around AI everywhere, and there's a sneaky little tidbit in this AI for everywhere piece. Those of you that pick it up, respect. Those of you that don't pick it up, I can't go into too much detail around it because I'm NDA'd through the roof. But AI everywhere is a big thing for us. I'm pretty certain that every single one of you in this virtual room have been to a Microsoft presentation where there's somebody on a stage in a really nice suit or dress going, AI is awesome. Yeah. And you're like, oh, cool. What is it? And you're like, we don't know, but just sell it. And that's not the point. We're democratizing artificial intelligence across the product stack. So those of you that are using tools like finance and operations, Dynamics 365, customer engagement, well, that set of applications in the Power Platform, you'll notice artificial intelligence being brought in through the stack all the time, especially with tools like AI Builder, which is really exciting. There are other enhancements that are taking place to functionality like virtual entities, and I'm literally stopping there on that one. So, and we are, like I said, we are dropping some sneaky little hints in here. So when we're looking at the other parts of the stack, one of the biggest announcements is around the remote work functionality. Okay, so the goal for us now is that we've realized, considering Microsoft Teams has been one of the most widely adopted platforms in the world, well, we've got to get with the program, right? Something that we noticed very quickly was that when Teams utilization went up, there was an issue around us being able to snap in sort of real relational data with collaborative data to create that modern desktop experience. And that's one of the things that we've really been focusing on, is around making sure that people can access their data through Teams. Okay. Obviously, there is the concept of offline capability coming out. Well, it is out effectively. But one of the things we picked up on as well is that when you're looking at, large organizations that do use Microsoft Teams leveraging data, we need to make sure that we make data democratized. We need to give people access to data as quickly as possible. The next part of this is around what we call fusion teams. And this is really allowing, organizations to leverage these amazing build tools that are available within the Power Platform, and then building out these amazing solutions, right? So enhancements have gone into both governance, compliance, center of excellence, and even things like, the Power BI direct, that's not an English word, direct query support. So we've had an amazing sort of focus on data. A lot of the time when we used to talk about the Power Platform and Dynamics 365, we had this huge focus on apps, right? And it was always about apps, and app this and app that. But the way the world has changed now is we're focusing primarily on data, and Microsoft is a data-driven organization. One of the things we want to do is give you access to your data in the most simple and affordable way, right? Now, when you're starting to look at what's going on now, the applications you're building are heavily reliant on data. Bad data equals bad reports. Bad data equals probably pretty bad app as well. Also, the apps you're designing and the solutions you're designing are highly focused on getting the best data possible to make sure the organization and the organization's processes are respected. Which brings me on to the next piece around hyper-automation. So one of the core areas is around robotic process automation, or RPA, where, and we spoke about this last time, where we found that we needed to invest in a platform that allowed us to get data from solutions without APIs. Now, when you're looking at organizations that are legal, manufacturing, financial services, a lot of them didn't actually replace those applications when the big 1999 to 2000 boom happened. And then we're using gray screen apps. So we needed a way to get that data. And obviously those solutions didn't have APIs. So RPA was one of our focused areas. So the API management functionality, as well as the RPA functionality, give us a really great way to get data so we can build out epic solutions and epic applications. Lucy, do you want to pop into the next one? And by the way, I am flying through this because I have 15 minutes. So the core focus I want to make right now is the ability to leverage Microsoft Teams as a remote work platform. So one of the key things we figured out was that we found a use case within the Microsoft stack where we had a lot of people leveraging the Power Platform to build out these amazing applications. But number one, they couldn't always afford to use, and I'm going to use older terminology right now, they couldn't afford to use the common data service because the license was at a minimum £7.50 per user per month. But they also couldn't rely on leveraging tools like SharePoint lists because that is not a relational database. And looking at the high volumes of data stored in there, they were having sort of data leakage issues. So we needed an in-between. And what we decided to do was say, well, look, because Teams is the go-to platform right now from a collaboration perspective, and because organizations with these high volumes of users need to be able to build out these apps on a secure and trusted data facility, we decided to introduce, Lucy, do you want to go to the next slide? We decided to introduce our new best friend to the world, and that's a thing called, just hit one more animation, Dataflex, right? So as much as you think it sounds like a technical gym program, it's not. Dataflex is the new name for what we effectively refer to as the Common Data Service. So Lucy, do you just want to go into the next slide real quick? Cool. So the CDS, the Common Data Service as we used to know it, is now called Microsoft Dataflex Pro. It is not Power Data, it is not Power Dataflex, it's Microsoft Dataflex Pro. When you're looking at the, you can go to the next one. When you're looking at what Microsoft Dataflex is, that's like a mini version of the Common Data Service democratized in Teams. So it is a relational data storage facility embedded and ingrained, democratized directly into Microsoft Teams. Okay. Now, before we go to the next one, I just want to tell you something real quick. A lot of the stuff around this from a slide perspective is NDA. So I haven't been able to share the slides with you, but I do have information that I can share that is not necessarily on a slide, right? So just remember, we can talk about this to an extent. So we're still limited in some of the things we can say, and some of the MVPs on the call will know that. But also there's some information that hasn't been shared with us, right? So we will give you as much as we can within the confines of the NDA that we're in, but it's also hopefully going to help you guys out. So you just want to pop into the next slide, Liz. Right. So when you take a look in Teams, right, you've got this really amazing ability to build out these applications. So this is what it will look like. So Thomas has asked, any information on the data actually will be stored. So where will the data in Common Data in Dataflex be stored? I think that is NDA'd at the moment, so I can't tell you, but what I can tell you is it's not a SharePoint list, right? So think about what's in the Common Data Service right now called Dataflex Pro. So in Dataflex Pro, you've got Elastic Pools, you've got Azure Blob, you've got Cosmos, all those types of data storage facilities that are embedded under the Common Data Service, i.e. Dataflex Pro, okay? Dataflex is a subset of that. So if you do the math, you can figure it out pretty quick, right? So now when you take a look at it, it kind of looks a little bit like this, right? So you've got this ability to build out these relational data models in a trusted platform that allow you to manage your data in the most sort of trusted possible way, in the most governed and compliant way, without breaking those data limits that SharePoint lists used to see. So it does look similar to Microsoft List functionality that's also being released and is in the public domain. And if Lucy, do you want to go into the next one? We're going to talk about that very briefly. Okay, so there are some questions around this that come up all the time. So I picked the top 5, okay? And the top 5 questions around Dataflex in particular, because Dataflex Pro you are using right now, okay? So Dataflex is effectively the tool that is going to be launched very soon. So they're looking at the launch date roughly in August, and I think that's private preview, okay? And then sort of after that, you'll be able to go into a public preview, right? So that's what's available from that perspective. We're really excited about it, and I think as soon as I can get my grubby little paws in it, the better. There is a question, so some of you might know that Microsoft Lists is being released as well, okay? This is also in the public domain. Microsoft Lists are built on top of SharePoint lists, okay, and that has been democratized in Teams. Dataflex is not built on top of SharePoint lists, okay? So when you look at the two in a comparative nature, when should you use each one? Okay, Microsoft Lists is a subset of what's in Dataflex Pro, previously known as the Common Data Service. So when you're leveraging that functionality, know that it is a reliable relational data source. Microsoft Lists is SharePoint lists under the hood. So Dataflex is a subset of Dataflex Pro. Microsoft Lists are SharePoint lists. When you use each one, when you're building out proper Power Platform solutions, you're using Dataflex within Teams. When you're building out flat structures for quick applications, you're looking at Microsoft Lists. And that's the type of guideline that we've received. Security and governance is going to be reliant on Teams. So your team security, that is effectively when, that effectively relies on the way that Teams is set up. So when you think about like the roles that are identified within Teams, that's how the Dataflex functionality, that's how the Dataflex security will be set up. Dataflex Pro, okay, is a little bit different, right? So remember, you've got that 7-tier security model within Dataflex Pro, but Dataflex is going to be reliant on what's in Teams. There's a question that says any out-the-box integration between List and Dataflex. Why would you need to do that? That would be the first question. The second question is, if you want to port data from source A to Dataflex, there is a way to do that, right? So that's really key. The next question is Dataflex Solutions to Dataflex Pro. There will be an actual migration path from building Dataflex Solutions to Dataflex Pro. So if you build like a bite-sized chunk solution within Dataflex that's embedded in Teams and you realize you need to turn this into an enterprise-grade application, awesome. You can go right ahead and do that, but the migration path is not available just yet. So it will be, but they've stipulated that it's on the roadmap, but not right now. And then licensing. Dataflex Pro is a premium connector, and you will require either a Dynamics 365 customer engagements or Dynamics 365, Kaila, correct me if I'm wrong, finance and operations plan to access elements of Dataflex Pro within the dual write functionality, or a Power Apps license, okay? As long as you're getting a paid for premium connector within the licensing, you can use that. Dataflex is seeded within Office. This is important. It is seeded within your Office license. So you can go ahead and instead of using SharePoint lists to build out all those massive applications that you're building, you can use Dataflex now with a reliable relational database in the background. Okay, so that is what we can share. There are other questions. I can see them in the chat. I've run out of time already. I'd like to hand back over to Lucy. I'm going to take these questions in the chat sort of one by one. And yeah, I think that's it from my end. Lucy, do you want to just add in anything to these questions that you think might be helpful?
Yeah, actually, all the questions that were asked in the chat were the ones that first came to my head when this was announced. Cool. And also Scott Jackson's asked a really interesting question around planner integration. I don't know the answer to that, but making a fairly educated assumption, I'm hoping it's going to be Dataflex, because obviously a Dataflex instance gets provisioned with every team that you create, and a Dataflex environment sits aside in that team. So and same with Planner. So I would assume that that's the case, although we all know assumptions make an ass out of you and me, so let's not do that too much. Cool. So with that, Chris, you had a couple of slides on sort of geographic availability before I hand over. I forgot
I had these, my bad. So from a geographic availability perspective, do you know that you can actually go onto the update site and see what's being added, what's and where? So we always include the slide just to let you know that we're being pretty visible about what's going on from an update perspective. Also the roadmap site. So if you go and you literally go into Bing and you Bing Dynamics 365 roadmap, you will get to an amazing site where you can actually drill into every single little piece of the roadmap and find out what's going on, providing you have the time, inclination, and determination. So yeah, that's available. And I just want to say, Lucy, next slide, please. I just want to say that there are hundreds and hundreds of updates. So they often do feel a little bit like Psyduck from Pokemon. You might freak out and explode. That happens to me. That's why we divvy up the work, right? So what happens is I'll focus on certain areas, Kay will focus on certain areas, and Lucy will focus on certain areas. And then we'll just, munge that information together to get a really good understanding of what's going on from a platform perspective. So that's how we do it. And, obviously, if you want to chat about those different areas, we'd welcome it. So Lucy, kind of do the classic Microsoft thing. Lucy, over to you.
Any excuse to squeeze the word munge into a sentence, and Chris is your man. Cool. So next up, we've got kind of 5 key topics we're going to cover off. I'll do sales and then marketing. These are in no means any order. Chris will do customer service and field service, and then also we'll hand over to Kaila. So from a sales perspective, as Chris said, there's a huge amount of updates. So I've tried to pull out the top 3 that I think are going to be the most impactful, and then I've just popped that little slide. I think what I would urge you to do is, outside of this call, is go off and search on the Wave 2 release notes around sales insights and product visualize. I'm sure you'll have all seen our latest and greatest updates around our democratized AI capability for presenting data or actionable insights out of data in various different ways. So we have customer insights, we have sales insights, and we have product visualize. And what they really do is they can ingest data from a whole bunch of different sources and then present to you that data in a format that's really valuable to you or to your customer or to your business itself. So I'd really encourage you to take a look at that. Umar Barry at Microsoft on Chris and Kayla's team is the lead from a technical perspective on that, and he's got some really great insight, excuse the pun, on how that data can be ingested and all the kind of outputs that it can get. But what's really exciting is that it doesn't actually rely on you as an organization or your customer's organization having like Dynamics and F&O or whatever. It can actually ingest data from a whole bunch of different other sources that are outside of our stack. So it's a really great way to get started, and it also demonstrates potential gaps in your data, which is what it all comes down to, right? But from a sales perspective, we're really heavily investing in our mobile experience. I think if for those of you that have been using the platform for a while, that's actually been our weakest link. And I think we recognize that as an organization. So we're plowing a huge amount of investment into improving that experience, both in sales as a first-party application, but also across our Power Platform solution, and building better sort of interoperability between a lot of those from model-driven and Canvas app perspective. So I'd urge you to take a look at the notes on that. We're also, this release, we've done a huge amount around forecasting and gamification. So excuse the Z's in the words here. I just, we're an American company. I'm having to try and embrace it. But I'd really encourage you to take a look at this, because a little bit like our democratized AI capability, we're trying to encourage that competitive nature by providing you with dashboards and actual sort of snippets of games to help drive your sellers' behavior. And as someone who's got a partial sales role, it really does help just to see how I'm pitching against my colleagues. So again, go ahead, try it, jump on the preview, have a go. It's been around for a while, but we've made some huge investments. And then just from a usability perspective, we've really trying to release a whole bunch of updates just to make the experience even more simple. So that's the sales piece. And then moving on to marketing, please do excuse this slide. This is one of the ugliest slides I've ever put together, but I wanted to make sure that you had the links to the updates specifically on this once this deck is shared out. So for those of you that aren't aware, Dynamics 365 Marketing's been around for a little bit of time now. It took over from our previous solution, MDM, or Microsoft Dynamics Marketing, and provides automated marketing capability. One of its key benefits is that it sits on Dataflex. I'm going to pause. Dataflex. So your data in your marketing solution can now be really easily accessed in your sales, in your customer service, in your field service capability, but importantly, doesn't take up your kind of CDS storage, a little bit like some of potentially the other solutions that are available. And it can sit on its own. So it can sit aside from your other line of business applications too. Now, because it was a new solution to the market, we've gradually invested and brought in even more capability. And some of the really key ones that I think are vital out of the back of everything that's happened this year is its ever increasing integration into Teams. So we can now, as part of the events that we're running, pull in Teams capability and run webinars and meetings through direct integration to Teams, which is fabulous. We have our customer builder, which allows us to create personalized journeys and really unique experiences and nurture programs to guide our user through that or our recipients through tailored messaging, and that has improved and become even simpler. And we've added additional channels. So where social is now really important to our organizations or our customers' organizations in a way to reach our customers, we are making that even easier. We've also added some really interesting segmentation capabilities, which can be leveraged both inside customer insights and also when creating those segments. So we can now, and our segment capability has been really powerful from the start, but it's now even easier because we can use natural language commands to really drive the build of our lists and the build of our segments, whether it be static or dynamic. So for the eagle-eyed of you in the room, you'll notice that I went from the bottom of that list to the top because I'm a little bit I don't know, disturbed, I guess would be the word. But really, I would encourage you to take a look at that list and drill down in a little bit more on those releases. And with that, I'm going to hand back now to Chris to take us through. Oh, before I do, I just wanted to pop this slide in because I think it really details quite nicely our most up-to-date kind of product stack awareness and where everything fits together in line with kind of go-to-markets and our internal sales plays. So really do take a look at that because it really kind of, for me, sort of allows me to visualize all of the solutions, whether it be across Power Platform or our first-party applications and where they sit. And you will notice I hastily updated forms to customer voice and CDS. Cool. So with that, I will hand over now to the fabulous Chris Nicorn again to take us through the updates for customer service.
Yeah, there's some pretty interesting stuff coming in the customer service side. So sort of what's happened around the way that you perceive service is that it's been brought together. It's not been brought together, but let's put it this way. A lot of the notes are under the service flag, and often field service is perceived as part of service. So if you go and take a look at the release notes, you will physically see marketing, sales, service, drill into service, and you will see the field services pieces. So just as a heads up, if you're getting a bit confused, often that's the way that they frame it from a documentation perspective. So yeah, with the customer service piece, as you know, there's been a huge focus in proactive customer service. That's been one of the core things that we've been looking at from the Microsoft perspective. And then also when you break that down, right, you've got agent productivity, which is effectively like really enabling your agents from the sort of back end office, engage with customers across multiple channels, and being able to use the productivity tools to give the right information back to agents, back to customers. So that's been a real key focus for us. The next one is Omnichannel. Now, the Omnichannel one is a big one because when you looked at what we used to do with tools like Unified Service Desk, et cetera, we needed a way to bring multiple channels into a single source, right? And I think from our perspective with Omnichannel Engagement Hub, we've done a huge amount of work on that. Now, not only just from, UI, good buddy, hey, if you guys ever want to follow somebody that does some great work on Omnichannel, EY, if you wouldn't mind sticking your blog into the chat here, EY has actually done a bit of work with the product group on that. So Omni's great because it gives you a really great opportunity to bring those channels together. Now, we've actually started looking at other channels like WeChat and even WhatsApp to kind of make that offering really amazing for our customers, right? The other thing that I found from an omnichannel engagement perspective is that when you're looking at the way in which the product is structured, again, it's all built on Dataflex Pro, right? So much like we used to term CDS, it's all built on top of Dataflex Pro, but it really kind of brings in the field services functionality at a later point. So now we're not just talking about capturing cases anymore. There's a whole bunch of stuff that's actually under the hood here where they're actually using artificial intelligence, which is the next piece here, to resolve cases and provide insights into cases. We've democratized the knowledge base functionality and made it much more simple to get to. You can also start embedding things like knowledge base functionality directly into emails and send those out, which is really great. The other thing that's really important for us is when we start looking at the agent productivity piece, we have this concept of automated routing of cases through Omnichannel when they get in. So you can actually set up agent skill sets and then automatically route, or automagically, should I say, route cases and route emails directly to the various agents, dependent on the type of information within those cases or calls. Now that is epic, right? Because that really, really automates the whole processing from a case management perspective. So if you drill into the various areas, and I'm not going to do that on the call purely because we've got 15 minutes left, but when you drill into the areas on the actual site, you're going to start seeing a lot of functionality around AI coming up as well, which is really key. The other thing is that when you're starting to look at case resolution, I'm sorry, I have to bring this one in. When you're starting to look at case resolution, one of the biggest issues we had was when agents were resolving cases, it took a long time from a turnaround perspective. So we're doing things like agent suggestions for similar cases where they're using AI to make those suggestions up to agents, right? Kaila, Lucy, do you want to pop into the next slide? Oh, I'm about to have a visitor. Give me a second. Right, so the next one is around the field services piece. So field services for us, again, sort of comes off the back of customer service. A lot of the deliveries we see are customer service and field services, right? So you're bringing in that case management functionality and doing that conversion to a work order, right? So again, we're focusing quite a lot on the AI perspective from an insights point of view. Yeah, Matt's just put on another dead rate. I've got my citizen developer knocking on the door here. And no, I'm not letting her in. So we're focusing quite a lot on the AI side of things. There's been a sneaky little line in the sentence, and I know somebody spotted it. If Megan Walker's on the call, oh dear, I'm sorry, folks. So if Megan Walker's on the call, she'll notice that we've got Dynamics 365 customer voice, right? Okay, she's in. So if she said, hey, where's the rat?
Hey, everyone touched the rat.
Okay, I'm sorry, guys. So you can see that Dynamics 365 customer voice, that effectively was Forms Pro, okay? And that's been moved over and started to embed itself more and more in various areas of the service side of the products. The proactive service delivery is also a huge focus for us. So we are starting to do much bigger integrations into things like supply chain management, which Kaila will take you through shortly. And really the ability to kind of bring that data in through a proper process. Obviously, from a scheduling perspective as well, we've got our amazing multi-day manual scheduling. So we're actually optimizing the way in which work orders are scheduled and allowing for people, actual technicians, to come out and solve those issues. So it's very much like matching skills to issues and then going out to solve them in a more sort of automated and focused way. And then one of the key ones, right, is the new inspection functionality which is coming out for technician success. So technicians are giving you the ability to actually do inspections and understand what's going on with various pieces of equipment or even surveys, and then resolving those through to completion, but then bringing it all back to the story around data stored in Dataflex Pro and enabling all that data for great reporting. So with that, I'm going to pass over to Kaila to talk about some of the more awesome release functionality from what she deemed the dirty side of the stack. So Kaila, over to you.
So I won't have quite as an interesting background going on, but we love to welcome our new junior colleague into the meeting. What I wanted to go through today is to talk a little bit about what's going on in the finance and operations side, because in actual fact there's a lot going on, and it's a bit complicated to be honest, because through the theme of everything that we're about to discuss, it's pretty much bringing the ERP side of the stack more into line and bringing what used to be customer engagement and finance and operations into one sort of mindset. And what you'll notice as well throughout here is anyone that's willing to start coming on and bringing, their Power Platform experience onto the finance and operations apps. There is a lot of white space here, especially with the enhancements we're doing. So what I'm going to go through, we have to do some isolation because some are more advanced than others, is finance, supply chain, commerce and project operations for starters. Because when it comes to these, they're part of what used to be AX or the ERP, and there's a lot of functionality changes that we're making that are very core and critical that you guys need to be aware of, which applies to all four of those. So the first one is about the data lake functionality, Gen 2. Anyone who knows about finance and operations, this has been coming for, about 18 months now. And it got pushed back again a little bit. There is in October, there's some coming, and they've got some enhancements coming to enable it. The biggest issue that we had is the entity structure not being pushed out properly. So we're now getting high level dates of March. Can we promise it? This is about the 5th GA date we've had, and obviously some components are coming into GA already still. They're doing a trickle feed of it. And now there's a wave 3 associated that, which will become in the second wave of this year. But there is a lot going on there, and it's going to be really big for everyone. So anyone who has finance and operations or is considering rolling it out, or any of the apps at the moment, you need to really think hard about whether you use bring your own database or whether you use and this functionality that is coming out and is partially in GA now. Definitely when you're rolling out your project, speak to the fast track engineers to get better remits of whether in your region it's in GA yet, because it's also being rolled out regionally. So there's no easy cut way for anyone to say, can you use it yet or not where it is today, and also what functionality you can use in GA in your region, because it's been quite tricky for everyone to roll out. But if you can get it, or if your timelines allows, absolutely go there, because always remember when it comes to this, you can't have BYOD and the data lake integration. You can only have one. So if you do BYOD, you're going to have to do a bit of a re-implementation of your reporting solution when it does drop, because BYOD will be phased out as soon as this drops. So it could be impactful for your implementation, for your project, and a bit of rework that you wouldn't want to necessarily do. Another big thing is, well, I'm calling it a performance enhancement, but actually it's not really. There's a new grid control, which I thought was really interesting that comes out, and this is more of my nerd side. It's finally turning the grids in what is the ERP into something that you can use a little bit, it's got better filter functionality, better search functionality, and you can actually do in-grid calculations. So for a finance tool to be able to actually use those sort of functions, is bringing it more natively to what the sort of accounting teams will be useful, and bringing actually more of that functionality in. So it's really interesting, and what's good about it is this massive performance enhancements associated with this. So if you've got any customizations you're looking at, you want to do, and you're considering these sort of functions, absolutely try it out. It is the sort of next future of our structure and layout, and also it will be used and rolled out across the standard grids within the application. Dataflex Pro, Common Data Service, commerce, project operations. So what used to be project management accounting, if you use that, the dual right capabilities natively coming as soon as it goes into general availability, as you know, because we need it to integrate the data down to the PSA or the model-driven app half of the solution, and also commerce is coming from October. So these will be huge, and this goes back to that white space now. So what we've got human resources, we've got finance, we've got supply chain, we've got commerce, we've got project operations, all there natively integrate into the common data service. All of them, as we all know, there's a massive ISVs or functional industry aligned enhancements you're going to want to do. The first people to jump on this bandwagon and bring their skills into this sort of world, you guys are going to rock it, you're going to fly. And I've already had some people call out to me and say, oh, can you help me get this set up or get that set up? Yeah, all right, absolutely. Because whoever jumps in the space, it's going to be massive. So can't recommend enough people going in and having a look and figuring all of this out, because it's going to be great. And I like playing with it, to be honest. It's loads of fun. Updated support experience. This one's quite, it won't come as a surprise to anyone. We use lifecycle services for finance and operations, and now people who do project operations have to use it as well. For human resources, it's also needed. What's happening in the background and what the general strategy is we're not going to have a Dynamics 365 portal over here and a Finance and Operations Dynamics 365 portal over here. They're going to become one. And this is where we're starting to align that. So you're going to have the Power Platform portals, that, you know, that's not up for question. There's different capabilities you need. But for when it comes to implementing Dynamics products, they are going to be aligned and they're coming into one. So this is the first big enhancement that's coming in to align what's going on in lifecycle services to what everyone's used to with CE Power Platform. And it's going to keep coming to this sort of middle ground. And for me personally, I think project operations is going to be the massive force behind that, because for that product, you need your model-driven apps just as much as you need your ERP solution behind it. And what you've also got to remember is human resources is an app, and we use lifecycle services. So it's nothing changing the world. It's just going to take a while to get it up to date. RSAT is another massive thing. Anyone who listened to my blog on project management Saturday a few weeks back, this is really key. Automated testing. Anyone who's coming in from PSA and they're now trying to get to grips with project operations, look into RSAT. It's full native automated testing, business process modeling, layout, and also can use big training. It's brilliant, heavy investment from our side of the stack. This is a key area where there's a mass amount of investment going on, especially now they're also trying to invest in it to get the e-commerce solution for cart automated testing functionality as well. So massive amount going on there, and all of those significantly change and update all of the offerings that we've got across the full stack. When it comes to the specific apps, there's a couple of things I wanted to pull out. Finance, probably a bit more boring, but we've got some new localizations coming out, so I won't spend too much time on that. Two things that definitely I do want to call out is the insights that we've got coming on, and they're continuing to be invested in. So we're getting some real cool Power BI that's dropping in to be a standard available. Finance Insights is coming out, which has the payment predictions, budgets, cash flow predictions. That's going to continue to be invested in. And that's not, you know, Customer Insights is an additional add-on. With Finance Insights, it's not. It comes standard. So as long as your customers are in, get them upgraded, get it active. It's brilliant. The functionality is absolutely amazing. And if you're doing any pre-sales, show it. You know, you can actually get demos out there now. You know, I helped a colleague do one last week. Get these on there because these are amazing, especially in comparison to competitive products. We've also got a lot of enhancements in electronic reporting and also printing, document routing agents. I need to look into that more because anyone knows that if you have complex company setups where your print management can be a nightmare with finance. So definitely have a look. Supply chain, like Chris said, we're trying to, and so many enhancements are going in to line us up with field service as a more unified solution. There were so many updates, I literally can't even call them all out. In every area of the stack, there's a massive amount of updates, so just go in and have a look. You know, there's going to be something for everything you're considering. Commerce, abandoned cart. We've been waiting a long time for this. A massive amount of customer revenue is lost from abandoned cart management. So this is about, I've gone in, I've put some stuff in my basket, and then I've never paid for it. You know, the ability to go in, contact that customer, see whether they meant to, why did they abandon the cart, everything like that. Gift card purchase, finally there, you would expect that. PayPal standard integration, brilliant. We're not stuck with just Aiden anymore. And integration with Bing, bit underwhelming, but I thought I'd call it out because it's kind of comedy. And then project operations, the bit that you're all going to be talking about, because we as Microsoft have said, you have promised us that you're going to do a standard seamless update from PSA to project operations. The current estimation is for around March for this, so it's not going to be in October when it first goes live. We sort of have to fingers crossed for it. You know, I think these things always are never necessarily as quick to come across the mark as they should be or we want to be. But it is there. It's definitely front of mind. It's definitely what they're investing in, and it will happen. So we just have to hope. But that, because that is towards the back end of the wave, I think it depends how the product lands, to be honest, and how much we have to do to enhance the product. It might impact that. Do you want to swap slides, Luce? That's it. I had to do a specific call out for human resources. We can't line it up, so everything I've just talked about with the other apps, I can't line them up together. This is completely isolated in its own right now as an app itself. So I just wanted to call out a couple of really cool things that are going on here, because we don't often mention it. But the team self-service stuff, don't know whether you've seen it. If you have, God, I spoke about it for 3 months straight. The self-service functionality for employee and manager in Teams, absolutely amazing. Chatbot, amazing. Finally coming in GA in October and is continuing to be enhanced. Like Chris has said, it's the centre of the world now for all companies, and that's the message we're pulling. So human resources and your, data management for your employees, whether it's leave and absence, updating anything, as much as possible, it's going to be fronted in Teams, and they're going to continue to enhance on that. Data Lake Gen 2. So this was interesting. This is the only app at the moment where you don't have a native integration with a data lake. You can obviously go through your CDS connectors then out to Data Lake, but that's still not necessarily what you want, especially if you consider an API limits. This is interesting because I briefly mention it and then you never hear of it again. And knowing that how long it took for us to get all the finance and operations app using the Data Lake, I'm not convinced it'll come in this wave, and no one's promising anything in this wave either. So they're definitely working on it. They're definitely trying to do it. Do I think it's going to come in this wave? No, and I think you can estimate that's probably a safe bet on the basis that they've not explicitly called it out. They've just said they're going to work on reporting. So we'll see on that one, but it's definitely been mentioned. It's definitely there. So actually maybe we'll see it in the next wave one. And the next thing is about integration enhancements. And I had to generalize this because there's so much going on. So Azure Active Directory, everyone's thinking, well, it's always used that. No, this is about actually doing your role-based access control within Azure. So within customer engagement, for example, everyone will know that you centralize your roles and your user groups, and you can manage your licensing properly within your Active Directory and your Office 365 portals. Ultimately, what they're doing is they're aligning that with human resources. So making sure that we're rolling up that controls and access management, technical enforcement of the licensing, putting that into Azure Active Directory. So there's ongoing work to do that. Outlook integrations. When you're doing leave and absence, integrate into your calendar. Whoop, loving that. Dynamics 365 apps. We need to build on them. At the moment, there was a bit of an integration with finance. That's going to continue to be enhanced so it can be worked across the stack. LinkedIn Talent Hub. Been ages waiting for that since they made that crazy notification about attracting on board. Talent Hub integration coming this wave. Payroll API as well. Everyone will be dancing around the room. This is really needed, and this is an agnostic payroll integration. So it doesn't matter what payroll provider you're talking about. It's a native API that should be, pretty much compatible with anyone with a little bit of transformation in the middle. And then finally, before Lucy wipes me off, CDS enhancements. These have been something as well very much needed, just so we can start extending the product properly. So there's a lot going on in human resources. There's a massive amount of investment, and hopefully they will actually manage to deliver all this, because it's really going to change the offering and bring it up a level.
Sorry, Mary, that was a complete technical faux pas on my side.
No, it's cool. Well, you can have it back now. You can have the world back for your Power Platform there. But yeah,
thank you so much.
If anyone wants to know anything.
Thanks so much, Kaila. That was absolutely awesome. I learned a huge amount about that. Cool. So we've only got a few minutes left. So really keen. You'll notice that there's like 4 points on this slide, and there's been a huge amount of updates to the Power Platform, but I wanted to pluck out the key ones because obviously Dataflex is like literally the latest and greatest news, but there are some other really key points that I'm absolutely ecstatic to mention, and I think most of them surround Power Virtual Agent. So you'll see it's now become a component of the Power Apps Portal Studio. Fabulous. So where we want to be posting our chatbots ready for our customers or our partners or whoever we provide access to our Power Apps portals to, they can now do that. Power Apps component framework has now got support in Power Apps portals too. So for all of those of you who are into building PCFs, that's a really great announcement. And there's a whole, I've just written, there's loads of new RPA capabilities. There really is. Thanks to our acquisition of Softmotive a couple of months ago that got announced. So do go ahead and check that out. And also there is the Power Automate Visual in Power BI. I know there's a little bit of chat in the message stream about that. So do check that out too. And then finally, I just wanted to do a bit of a shout out for the Power Users blog. It's a really great place to find out the latest and greatest, and also the ideas. I also mentioned the ideas site in the chat. If you do have any particular piece of feedback where you want it to get added to the roadmap, put it on the ideas site. Get your friends and your colleagues and your mum and your dad and your brother and your sister to vote those ideas up, and they do get added to the roadmap. So I'm sure many of you who are listening to our roadmap now submitted these ideas, voted them up, and that is the reason why they are now actually on their way to becoming GA. So really, we do listen, we take them on board, we get them in front of the engineers. Cool. So just a bit of a summary, I think, just to make sure we're all happy with everything that is the Power Platform. Chris has put a really great couple of summary statements in the chat around what is the difference between Dataflex and Dataflex Pro, and that's kind of made it super clear. So if you do have any questions, keep them coming. We will be in the virtual lobby with coffee, waiting to answer those questions, and we will get back to you as soon as we can. So just thought I'd leave this on the screen for a little bit so you can screen grab if you want to, if that's something that's of use for you within your organizations. But with that, thank you so much to D365 UG for hosting us, for having us. As always, you do a fabulous job. We're going to miss you, Scott, but we wish you very well on your way. And Canada is by no means out of the virtual realm, so we will still be keeping in touch with you. And thank you so much, Bibbs, for keeping the organisation on the straight and narrow. Thank you so much for joining our session.